Hello folks, today I've got a really cool gadget to show you. It's a keyboard, but bear with me, it's unlike any keyboard you've seen before. This is the Kwumsy K3. Not only is it a mechanical keyboard, but it also has a large 13-inch touchscreen, a multi-port USB hub, and an M.2 SSD enclosure built in. This is a really cool 4-in-1 device. In this video, I'll be doing a quick unboxing followed by a closer look at each element that make up the K3. I'll look at the keyboard, the display, the integrated hub, and finally the SSD enclosure. So let's begin. And we start with a quick unboxing. The Kwumsy K3 comes in a rather big and heavy box. There is a nice and striking product image on the front, and on the reverse, it has some product specs, some diagrams showing different connectivity options, and a list of items that's included inside the box. So in the box, you get the following: the Kwumsy K3 device itself, one USB-C to USB-C cable, one USB-A to USB-C cable, one USB-C to a HDMI plus two USB-A cables, a small tool to disassemble the keyboard, a power plug, a mechanical keycap and switch puller, and the Kwumsy K3 manual. So let's take a closer look at the K3. And my first impression? Well, I think it looks really good. I really like the brown leather screen protector cover as well. That's a really nice touch. The K3 has a 75% mechanical keyboard with a rotary volume knob. It has a 13-inch screen. There's a button on the side which is used to adjust the angle of the screen. Now, it's really important that you use this button when adjusting the angle, otherwise you'll end up breaking the mechanism which keeps the screen upright. On the back, it has all the connections and various different ports, and the M.2 SSD enclosure is located under the screen. In terms of build quality, it does feel rather heavy, but not too much. It weighs 4.6 pounds or just over 2 kilograms, which isn't bad considering it's an SSD enclosure, a USB hub, a keyboard, and a screen. It is a rather big device, so bear this in mind if you have a small desk space. It's made from a mixture of aluminium alloy, ABS, and polycarbonate. Now, I would have personally loved it if the keyboard had an aluminium housing, as personally I prefer heavy metal cases on a keyboard, but it does feel rather sturdy and well put together. There's no notable irregular gaps or notable defects anywhere on the keyboard. It has a black and grey finish with a carbon fibre style look under the screen and also behind the screen. It also has a textured finish on the surface by where the SSD enclosure is located. Now on the back, it has a silver finish which does attract some finger marks. There's a Kwumsy brand label and two-step height adjustments via these two adjustable feet. On the rear, you also have all the ports and memory card readers along with two handy cable tidy slots. So let's have a look at the specifications, and starting with the screen, it's a 13-inch IPS screen. It has a resolution of 1920 by 720. It has a refresh rate of 60 Hz. It's a touchscreen supporting 10-point touch on Windows devices. The screen can be angled from 0 all the way to 90 degrees. In terms of brightness, it has 300 nits and 1000:1 contrast ratio. Moving on to the keyboard, it's a 75% layout keyboard. It's hot swappable and fully DIY and customizable board. It comes with double-shot PBT grey and teal keycaps and Gateron yellow switches. And finally, moving on to the integrated hub and the SSD enclosure, there's a TF or trans flash card slot, a SD card slot, then there are two USB Type-C ports, one supporting PD or power delivery protocol, then there are two USB Type-A ports. These are USB 3.0 And finally, there is a dial, which is basically the power switch. The M.2 SSD enclosure is located under the display, and you need to ideally angle the display to about 90 degrees to access it. This supports speeds of up to 5 gigabits per second. So as already mentioned, this is a 75% keyboard. It has plastic housing and a grey finish. It's a fully mechanical keyboard and it's hot swappable, which means you can easily replace the keycaps or the switches without the need to solder them. It comes with a switch and keycap puller. There's also a small tool provided to actually disassemble the board. Here's a quick sound test. The keyboard also has RGB lighting on the sides as well as backlighting with up to 20 different lighting effects. You can also change various keyboard settings such as custom lighting effects and add custom macros via the K3 keyboard driver app available from the Kwumsy website. So this is a 13-inch IPS touchscreen. It has 1920 by 720 resolution with a 60Hz refresh rate, and as already mentioned, you can angle the display from 0 to 90 degrees. It has a brightness of 300 nits and 1000:1 contrast ratio, and the colors look really nice and crisp, and everything looks really sharp. It's a touchscreen and offers 10-point touch on Windows devices. It does also work on Macs, but to a slightly lesser degree. You can adjust various screen functions and settings by bringing up the OSD menu. The K3 supports connections via USB Type-C or HDMI. For a single Type-C cable connection, your laptop or computer must have a Type-C port which supports power, data, and video. Now, most modern laptops and graphic cards have this feature. If you don't have a Type-C port that supports this, then you can connect using the HDMI port. A custom Type-C to HDMI plus 2 USB-A cable is provided. Now, as well as connecting the Kwumsy K3 to your laptop or PC, you can also connect it to your phones. For example, if you have a Samsung phone with the DeX feature, which essentially transforms your Android phone into a mini PC. Now, unfortunately, I don't use Samsung. I have an iPhone, so I'm not able to demonstrate this. Now, this screen has a refresh rate of 60 Hz. It's not designed for hardcore gamers, but for casual gamers like myself, this is perfectly fine. And if you're playing, for example, platform type games, then the refresh rate probably won't even bother you. But bear in mind, the screen resolution and the size may not be ideal for all type of gaming. So not only does this device have a keyboard and display, it also has an integrated USB hub and an M.2 SSD enclosure. The hub and the SSD enclosure are a really nice and handy touch. The only thing I would have preferred was to have the SD card reader on the side instead of the rear, just for convenience sake. Otherwise, it's a really handy all-in-one system. Overall, this is a really nice piece of tech. It's well built and it looks really good. However, it is a big device. Laid flat, it's probably the same size as 2 keyboards, and depending on how much space you have on your desk, it may or may not be suitable for you. But if you're looking to add an extra screen to your desk without cluttering up your workspace, then this is a great option you should consider, bearing in mind the aspect ratio and size of the actual screen. The screen is nice and bright, offering 300 nits of brightness and 1000:1 contrast ratio. It's IPS, so it's really crisp and has good viewing angles. And depending on the type of work you plan to do, you may or you may not find the screen useful. It comes in handy when editing. You can use it to manage your editing tools, or using it as a media screen for music and video playback whilst working on the main screen. However, bear in mind that most videos from YouTube or Netflix will have massive black bars on the side because of the aspect ratio. Now, one downside about the screen that I will mention is that it's rather glossy and reflective, and depending on where you're working and how bright the room is, this can become a little annoying at times. Let me know in the comments what you would use a screen like this for. Overall, I really like the Kwumsy K3. It's a cool design, it's unusual, and it's not something you see every day. It's a rather eye-catching and striking to have on your desk, and for certain tasks, it could be a really useful gadget. The Kwumsy K3 is available now direct from Kwumsy. I'll leave all the links and details on the video description below. Feel free to leave me any comments or questions, and I'll do my best to come back to you. Thanks for watching, folks, and I'll see you in the next one.